This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. First of all, I'd like to apologize for the bit of dead air we had. Apparently, people do not realize that before they use a backhoe to start digging, that they should check to see if there are any telephone trunk lines there. Well, here in Hamilton, Ontario, there comes a time when you have to face facts that some people are morons. And that's what happened. Apparently somebody was using a backhoe to do something, and they didn't have the common sense to contact the different utilities to see where their trunk lines were buried. Thanks to the fast thinking of my studio producer, Craig West, he was able to reroute us through an auxiliary system. Took him a few minutes, but once again, X-Zone Nation, my apologies. And my apologies to you, Robert Hunnicutt. How are you doing, Robert?
I'm doing fine, Rob. Good to speak to you again.
Good talking to you. This was unexpected. I apologize for taking so long to get back to you. And I know that my last guest sent me an email saying that, or a Skype message saying, see, I told you that my vibrations were so strong it would knock Skype off, but... Sorry, Marcy, it wasn't Skype. It was John Deere and the idiot who was using the backhoe. X-Zone Nation, Robert Hunnicutt is a good friend of the X-Zone. He had a startling experience in 1976 at an Arizona theater, and that was the beginning of Bob's journey into the world of ghosts and hauntings. An experience that not only challenged his beliefs on the existence of the supernatural, it also revealed that science could not always adequately explain everything. And Bob, how's it been going in the world of ghosts and hauntings?
It's been going pretty good, actually. I kind of did a little bit of a reboot with the group. I took a little time off. I had a few health problems and was trying to get healthy again. And the past 6 months, things have really been going back full force, I think.
Well, I'm glad you're feeling better, Bob. The ghost and hauntings, part of the paranormal, need people like you and your groups that go out there and do a diligent research to find out what is the story behind the story. And tell me, Bob, over the years, what have you discovered? What are ghosts, and why do they only haunt certain places?
Well, that's a good question, and we get asked that quite a bit. And probably the quickest, most precise answer would be to say that you have different belief systems when it comes to the paranormal. You've got some people that believe that it's all PK or psychokinetic activity. Some people believe that it's impressions on the environment or residual haunting. You've got some people that believe in human spirits and some that believe in demonic spirits. And what we've learned over the years is to take each one separately, analyze it, assess it, and then make a determination from there. Most of the places that we've been to have been spirit hauntings. There's been very, very few residual. And there was this period of 8 years where I worked predominantly demonic cases. I try to stay away from that now. But when you're dealing with something of intelligence, an intelligent haunting, there are different theories. Some people believe that the spirit of this person may not know that they've passed on. They may have an affinity for this particular location or people that are there. And we also have seen some evidence and documentation over the years that because the Bible basically says we have free will, that some people just make that decision, they want to stay here. So like I say, each case is a little different and unique,
right?
But that's basically how we have run them down and classified them.
How many members are there in the Georgia Ghost Society?
There are 10 of us right now. We've had a lot of people that we had some that were in the military and had to move away.
Oh, gosh.
We've had a couple of members, unfortunately, that have passed away. Most of our members are adults. They're over the age of 30. I'm 57. So I set it up like this because when we first started in 1999, that's when the paranormal was really starting to take off. Yeah. And we wanted mature individuals, people that were not just going to be going for the scare and the fear factor. So I've really been fortunate. My assistant director, Drew Hester, who lives outside of Atlanta, he's been a driving force, especially the time that I've had to take off. And everybody has their own little niche, and it's a team and a family.
Bob, I know that you used to deal with the demonic side of the paranormal. Do you think that the demonic side may have had something to do with your illness?
It's possible. One of the reasons why I took such a far step back was because I was not at my full physical or mental strength.
Right.
And it's always dangerous for someone to try to dabble with this at all when you're not up, full strength. So it possibly could. I've tried to warn people over the years that say they want to get into this, that they're interested in dealing with malevolent. And it's a line that once you cross over that line, there's no going back. They know who you are. So it could be because some of the health problems were serious, and it took me a little over a year and a half to get back where I am now.
So how are you doing now, Bob?
I'm doing good. I went on a diet. I've lost about 65 pounds. I feel like I'm 25 again. So
good for you. Good for you.
The mind is willing, but sometimes the flesh is weak. But I'm feeling good.
Glad to hear that, Bob. When you are looking for prospective members to join your ghost hunters, what do you look for?
Well, first off, when we interview someone, we have them apply. They put in an application, and then we go through a process of interviews. And what I'm looking for is someone who is intelligent, who has common sense. I mean, that's the most basic requirement.
Right.
Someone who has a belief but is not so involved in it that every little thing that they witness or see is automatically supernatural or paranormal. They have to be willing to look at it analytically, because a lot of times it's natural causes and environmental changes that are the root of these problems. So you have to go in without the preconceived notion that, hey, we're going to see something spooky. Because I've been to some of the most haunted locations in the South, and some days you go, it's busy. Some days they don't want to come out and play. So they have to have a lot of patience, too.
Why is it that there are some people who have the ability to see ghosts, and there are people like me, like I've gone to all these different haunted places, and I haven't seen anything?
Well, I think a lot of it, depending on what your belief systems are, we have experienced things at locations that could obviously be some type of mental communication.
Right.
We saw an apparition once at the Waverly Hills Sanitarium, and she was no more than 10, 12 feet in front of us, just as clear as anybody standing there. And when she walked away, we ran after her because, there was completely out of place. She shouldn't have been there. And when we went into the room where she had entered, there was nobody there. We were on the third floor. But a lot of people have asked, why do you see a ghost sometimes and it's like they were before they died, or how they look now after they've died? And I think a lot of that is mental projection. I think a lot of people are up to it or open to it, and some people aren't. And that's not a good or bad thing.
So how, when you and the other members of the Georgia Ghost Society go out to do an investigation, how do you proceed, Bob?
Well, the first thing we do is we try to do a little bit of history on the location, and the reason for that is science right now. You're not able to really use science to prove or disprove a haunting,
right? But
you can use history as a kind of a guide. And an example of this would be there's a home that we investigated several years ago, and we went back and found people that had lived in it previously, and they also experienced activity. And when you start putting all three people's or family stories together, because they didn't know each other, they never discussed it, and you start bringing out photographs of like the original owner or who built it,
right,
or who originally lived there, and everybody points to the same person. It's kind of like a lineup. You get several photographs and say, is this the apparition that you saw? So if everybody is seeing basically the same thing and experiencing the same activity, and it's something that happened on the property where there was a tragic death or an accident, then you can kind of use this as a barometer, so to speak. If it was just one individual, you might, because we've had families before that would contact us. They'd send us photographs, and we'd go, and there was obviously no activity. One in particular, there was high power lines around the home, and the discharge was off the scale. I mean, it's obvious what was happening was these high tension power lines, and the electromagnetic energy was having a reaction with this man's brain, and he was hallucinating during specific times. He was seeing Indians, and the photographs he sent us, he said, "Can't you see him? He's right there." And there was nothing there.
Wow.
So, over about a 2-year period, his health deteriorated, and we tried to get them to move.
Right.
This is not good for you. I think this is the root of what's going on. And we lost track with him several years ago. But I do hope he took our advice and decided to move.
Do you find that there are more people today, Bob, that are looking into the aspect of the paranormal than there was 10, 15 years ago?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. When I started the Georgia Ghost Society in 1999, there were approximately 3 total groups here in Georgia. Now, I mean, it's ridiculous the number of groups there are. And people, instead of trying to work together, and pull together, they decide they want to do their own little thing. And that's every state. I mean, if you go to some of these conventions or conferences now, 10 years ago, you might have a couple of hundred people. And now you go to some of these things, and it's incredible the number of people that are fans and advocates for this.
Why do you think that is, Bob?
Because I think it's one of those things where people still fear death, and they want some kind of reassurance or answer that there's more than this corporeal existence we have here. I'm Catholic. I was, brought up that way. I have certain beliefs, but I also believe that, even if it weren't the religious upbringing, there's still got to be more than just this one little spot of existence right here. There's been too many stories over the centuries, too many documented cases of people experiencing this activity. There's got to be something to it. And they're interested, and they want to find out.
So, based on the research that you've done, based on the investigations that you've done, what happens when we die?
Well, there again, in my beliefs and what we've seen is that because of near-death experiences and other situations where people, I'm trying to remember a particular case where people would have what they call death omens, where someone would appear to them, and then they shortly after get communication that this person's been killed,
right.
One form or another. I honestly believe that we have free will. I think some people decide they want to stay. I can't imagine why. I would hope that the reward that we have are going to would be a little bit better than what we have here. But, everybody's got their own particular fears and their own, beliefs. So that's one of those kind of questions where, if you talk to 4 different people, you're going to get 4 different answers.
Gotcha. What has been the most active haunting investigation that you and the other members of the Georgia Ghost Society have investigated in Georgia?
Probably, without a doubt, it would be the Gaithers Plantation in Covington, Georgia.
Can you share this story with us?
Oh, absolutely. This at one time was a 900-acre cotton plantation. During the Civil War, they had a number of slaves that lived on the property. Right. It was a cotton plantation, and they were very prosperous up until the time that the boll weevil came in and started destroying the cotton crops. There was a story that one of the sons, in an argument, accidentally killed one of the neighboring farmers and had to leave, never to return. Eventually, a family lost the home because of the cotton crops. There's a long history of people seeing an elderly woman upstairs in a rocking chair. She has been seen out the window, and this is on the 2nd floor. And this is one of those locations that probably over the last 10 years, we've been there 4 or 5 dozen times, and it is always off the scale. There's always something. Either it's going to be very subtle, but, without a doubt, or it's going to be extremely active. There have been times where we've captured the rocking chair actually moving on its own, sounds of footsteps. One of the most interesting stories about this place was Tyler Perry filmed a movie, part of a movie there called Medea's Family Reunion.
Yeah, okay.
And there was a story that during the filming inside the home that at one point they heard footsteps upstairs. Now, this is an old house, so, you can imagine just walking, you're going to hear creaks and cracks. So, he stopped and said, please tell whoever's upstairs to be still. Well, of course, they go and investigate, and there's nobody there. So they start back again, and later this time there's footsteps coming down the staircase. And again, they stop and investigate. So it's one of these kind of places that even if you don't really have a belief in ghosts and hauntings, that the atmosphere and the stories can really prompt your imagination. And I think that is what a lot of people expect when they go to these type places, that it's going to be, like in a movie, always something going on. But it's like going fishing. You have to be patient. You have to be willing to listen. People running around, talking, laughing, cutting up, that just doesn't play. You have to sit there and keep your eyes and ears open. Sometimes it's a whistle. Sometimes it's a simple one-word phrase. Sometimes it's footsteps. But if you're not careful, these things sometimes will just go right on by and you'll never notice them.
The fact that there are so many people today who use ghost hunting or paranormal research as a lark. It seems to be more of a social gathering than something serious. Do you find that this attitude, this way of conducting themselves is disrespectful to the spirits?
I think it's disrespectful to everyone involved, including the owners or the people who live there. The Gaithers Plantation is a perfect example of this. Not too long ago, they allowed a group to come in. I don't think the group had ever been there before. And the next day, they had – this is a place where people have weddings and receptions. And during the summer, they have a big hummingbird festival.
Oh, wow.
So the very next day, they come out, and there are beer bottles everywhere, cigarette butts everywhere, balloons with vulgar drawings on them, and it almost ruined it for everybody. We were the first group that got access to it, and we've been one of the biggest proponents for it because it's such a wonderful location. But there are a lot of people that want to get out there and just cut up and play around, and these are the immature people that don't really have a serious devotion to trying to learn anything.
Yeah, I've seen I've heard stories basically paralleling what you were just describing when it comes to UFO people, when it comes to people looking for Bigfoot. It seems like this is the way it is right across the board. And as you were talking earlier about the hoarding of information, it's like that with every other part of the paranormal. And I can't understand it. That's not my mentality. My mentality is share the information.
Exactly. If you are in fact doing this for research purposes, if you're trying to find answers for either the residents of a home or the owners of a historic location, you have got to be willing to share your findings with other researchers, because if their findings, mimic yours, then you may be onto something here. You have to have comparison.
That's right. An example I use is law enforcement. All the information goes into the NCIC National Crime Intelligence Center, and it's shared with all the participating agencies. We have the same thing up here in Canada. In fact, the Canadian computer shares information with the NCIC. So in order to get to a conclusion, to get to the establishing of what is what, you need to share the information.
Oh, well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and there are people that are trying to set this up and establish some type of common ground where we can share.
Right.
But the problem you run into, there are people out there that don't have any problem whatsoever with plagiarizing somebody else's work and using them for their own presentations and things like that. And I think if we can ever get past the mindset that this is mine, I'm the one who did the work for it.
Right.
If we're not going to work together, we're more or less just spitting in the wind, spinning our wheels for nothing.
Bob, stand by. You and I have to take a brief commercial break. We'll be right back. Exo Nation, Robert Hunnicutt is my very special guest. He's also known as the Paranormal Southern Gentleman, and as you can hear over the last half hour, you know why. Their website is let me see. What's your website, Bob?
GeorgiaGhostSociety.com.
There you go. We'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. Holistic Cancer Foundation is a new nonprofit foundation that focuses on a holistic approach to cancer that includes physical, mental, spiritual, and political aspects. Cancer education, research, and care are provided for all types of cancer patients. You can listen to interviews with cancer doctors and survivors and read research on holistic aspects of cancer at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com. That's www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State-certified occupational school training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com.
Good real estate websites are not just about showing listings, but offering visitors valuable information about neighborhoods, market statistics, tips, and personal insights. Luckily, you will find that on Roost, but you won't on many other real estate websites in Budapest. That's why we created Roost. Roost is a website with tailored results for the foreign investor, curated by Hungarian-loving expats who found their home abroad and decided to roost in Budapest. Let Roost help you get started on the right foot. Whether you intend to live, work, play, retire, or simply invest abroad, Roost offers all types of properties in Budapest, from affordable studios to luxury homes. From neighborhood insights like where to grab a great coffee or how to buy property, our team of local experts can answer your questions and speak to the direct concerns of a foreign investor. Buying foreign property is an exciting and complex adventure. It can also be very time-consuming and costly if you don't have the best information and resources at hand. Roost provides professional real estate services and assistance to an international clientele of foreign property investors and rental apartment owners in Budapest. For more information on Roost, visit their website at www.roost.co. That's www.rooste.co. Welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you live and around the world from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Worldwide, toll-free 800-610-7035. Email xzone at xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV. And you can listen to the X-Zone 24/7, 365 at www.xzoneradiotv.com. Robert Hunnicutt is my special guest of this hour. Robert is the organizer, the man responsible for the Georgia Ghost Society. Their website is georgiaghostsociety.com. And Robert, always great talking to you. Thanks very much for joining us tonight.
Oh, glad to do it. Always glad to be here with you, Rob.
You're a good man, Robert. Robert, are there any inherent dangers when dealing with the paranormal or the supernatural?
I believe so. There again, you fall back into some of the basics. If you're dealing with something, whether it's malevolent or human, you are going to have some physical reactions to this from time to time. And I think a lot of times people will become so frightened or focused on what's going on that they don't have time to really process it and think. And I've seen people, trying to run, if it weren't the point where they had hurt themselves, it would be almost comical, like watching the Three Stooges, which, I can understand somebody that's not accustomed to this, but,
yeah.
In almost 30 plus years, I have never gone running away. I will run after it. And that's not to say that I'm never afraid or frightened by it. Anybody that does this and says they're never frightened are either liars or idiots. because you're dealing with something unknown.
That's right.
But there are inherent dangers, and that's why I don't like having anyone there under 21 years of age. You can always run into a situation to where someone is susceptible, whether they have inherent ESP abilities, or for some particular reason this particular spirit doesn't like this person. That's why I have such a problem with people, as it's shown in a lot of television shows, where they go in and actively and try to antagonize and cause something to happen. Mm-hmm. Whether this is someone's home or place of business, these spirits, beings, whatever, are there for a particular reason. So if they're like anybody else with a personality, if you go in and insult them or enrage them, they can lash back.
You brought up something that I was going to ask you about later on, but these so-called reality TV shows, are they a hindrance to legitimate investigation societies like yours, or are they an asset?
Well, some are, some aren't. The problem you run into, say over the last 8 to 9 years, there have been so many different programs that have come on and left, and it all falls back down to the basics. They're not really so much a reality show as a program where they're trying to show and demonstrate something that happens in reality. But you know as well as I do that the main thing for television programs is advertising.
That's right.
And if the advertisers aren't happy, there's no show. Yeah. So, I get a little frustrated with them sometimes because I can't watch them anymore. My wife doesn't even allow me to watch them because I get so frustrated and upset. And she says, just call them and tell them you're mad. Don't fuss at the TV. But, there's simple basics that I learned over the years to do that other people have taught me and that I've tried to pass on to them. And these are tried and true methods, so why go in and try to antagonize it? There have been cases where you're dealing with something malevolent or even demonic, and you challenge them, and these people have been physically attacked, and some of them not in the nicest ways. So, at your peril, more or less. But some of the shows have given us a really good representation of what goes on. Some of them, I think, take a little too much theatrical license, but it's not really my place to try to say what they should or shouldn't do. I just know what I would or wouldn't do.
But when certain cast members of different shows come out and say, "Listen, it's all hoaxed. We did this because the director wanted it done. And nothing really happened. We had the fishing wire hooked up. We did this. We did that." What does this do to people who are starting to have faith that their beliefs aren't that what they believed in is shattered?
I agree with that, and I think sometimes too there is always the possibility, because of the time constraint and trying to appease advertising, that sometimes when they're not cooperating, they may try to expedite, so to speak.
Yeah.
But it definitely has a negative effect, because after a while, you go to these historic locations, and Georgia is full of them.
Yes. And
you go to them and they'll go, "You don't really do it like this, do you? I mean, you're not going to come in here and try to start an argument or blah." And it's, no, we have a certain style that we use, and we try to adapt it to each location. We go in and take different atmospheric and environmental readings, EMF, temperature, barometric pressure, static charge in the air. We look at the moon phase, the solar activity. You look and see if there is a certain type of geographical situations where you've got different types of minerals and things in that location, power lines. each place is different, unique, but you have to get a baseline reading and try to make sure that what these people are experiencing isn't simply the wind blowing up underneath the house and rattling some pipes. And we have found that, on certain occasions where it's really not paranormal or supernatural. There is a natural reasoning for it. And I think people respect you more if you can calm their fears and say, this is what we believe it is.
Right. How do you prevent yourself from bringing home something negative?
Well, that's a good question too. Now, we have certain practices that we do.
Mm-hmm.
We say prayers before each investigation, during when necessary, and immediately after. One of my favorite prayers is the prayer to St. Michael, and it's one of these things to where it gives you a little bit more comfort. It lets you know that, you're not alone in this.
Mm-hmm.
And, anybody that really has any type of spiritual or religious belief, it helps gives them a little inner strength. And it's, there have been
mm-hmm.
cases where people have brought things home. And it's very dangerous because it can affect your spouse, your siblings, your children. And that's one of the main reasons why I tend to stay away from those type of cases now. My children are grown, but I have small grandchildren.
Sure. Listen, Bob, let's say you and Mrs. Hunnicutt go out on a drive on a Sunday afternoon. You come across a yard sale. There's a lot of antiques there. Is it possible that you could actually be buying a piece of antique furniture or even modern furniture that may have a spirit attached to it? And if this happens, how do you get rid of that spirit?
Well, there are plenty of documented cases of that. I've actually had people that have gone down to the Caribbean
mm-hmm.
and bought wooden statuettes or idols,
yeah.
and then bring them home, and then next thing you know, all hell breaks loose. Anything, especially antique, has the possibility of being a cursed or have something attached to it. That's when things can really get hairy. People automatically have the idea, well, if I destroy it, burn it, they'll throw it away. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to solve the problem. I try to work with, certain members of clergy, depending on the denomination or depending on, what their particular faith is.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it, especially when that happens, they are going to have to take some of the responsibility and make some of the effort to help rectify the problem. We had a case several years ago, which was really, kind of a strange situation for us because the family was Jewish. And most of the beliefs that I have are Christian. So you can't
mm-hmm.
really apply the Christian beliefs to people that have, from Judaism. So basically what I ended up doing was making some calls and inquiries from the other investigators. And one of them told us that what we needed to do was have them contact their rabbi and tell them exactly what's happened. And they evidently rabbis have a particular, I don't want to use exorcism, but a ceremony where they have tried to dispel the negative energy. And after that, everything was fine. But, people think that, they call a group and they going to come out and take a few pictures, a little video, and that's going to be the end of it. And we don't do that. We work with clergy and we'll help them find someone, but we don't try to do anything like clearings or
aiming the people to the light.
Yeah. The reason for that is I think if you try to put yourself in wear too many hats,
yeah.
that things kind of get convoluted, and before long you're doing more harm than good. We go in, we try to document it, we try to find out what we're dealing with, and then try to find them some assistance, from there. But
you're researchers, and you are doing exactly what researchers are supposed to do.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mind you, Bob, a respect that I have formed for researchers like yourself and the other members of the Georgia Ghost Society over the years by having the pleasure of talking to people like yourself is that most ghost researchers are excellent historians.
Well, that's part of it.
Yeah.
It all plays a part into it. And, someone experiencing activity, doesn't necessarily mean, especially even in a new home, that's free from any type of activity, because you've got property and things that have happened around that property. So the history is a big part of this research.
Yeah. And you see, you as a seasoned researcher know this, but I don't think, Bob, the younger generation getting into ghost research, and I don't like calling it ghost hunting, because what you do with the, if you're a hunter, is you track it, you kill it. How can you kill something that's already dead?
Exactly. And I think the major difference between someone who is a ghost hunter and someone who is an investigator researcher is we go to places that we already know that there's a history of activity,
right,
that other people have already experienced it and it's already been documented. Ghost hunters more or less are going to places trying to find something. And I don't put them down for that. I've already done that, and I tried to move up the ladder, so to speak.
My wife and I go down to the Caribbean quite often. And we go to the Dominican Republic, which is just on the other side of Haiti on the same island. And I'll tell you something, Bob. I will not bring any wooden statues or any wooden or carved souvenir from Haiti, because I've seen their rituals. I've been to voodoo rituals. And I'll tell you something. There is something to it, and bring back a statue, bring back anything carved, no way in Hades.
And I don't blame you, and I wish other people would recognize the dangers that are attached to that, because just because they tell you that it's something to bring you good luck or bring you fortune doesn't necessarily mean that that's what it is.
That's right.
You're dealing with a lot of these religions like voodoo, and then some of these just like especially when you get in parts of the South, they use some of the same rituals or some of the same saints' names in their particular rituals, but it doesn't mean that they're exactly who they are in the Christian beliefs. Santeria is another one of these where you get into some really dark, dangerous activity that can be generational. We've had cases where people as children were more or less, for lack of a better word, sold or given to a particular deity or spirit, and as they get older and try to live their lives, then they start having serious problems. And you can't be an expert in every aspect of this field, but you've got to be willing to try to learn as much as you can and not be afraid to say I don't know. Find someone who does if you don't.
That's right.
This whole dazzle them with brilliance and baffle them with BS. That just doesn't play here. If you don't know, say I don't know, but I will find someone who does.
Bob, the time for us to say so long is coming up fast, my friend. But let me ask you, we're coming into the Halloween season, and for some reason, people go out into graves to do ghost hunting, and it seems to be that it's all part of certain groups' gimmick. As a seasoned researcher, are there more spirits? Are there more ghosts in graveyards than there are anywhere else?
Well, that's going to be really based on the particular cemetery.
Okay.
And I've gone to different cemeteries around the state and, had some really strange experiences. One in particular is up in Dahlonega, Georgia. And, we actually, during the wintertime, had an experience where several of us would smell roses. Well, the wintertime, you're not going to have roses. People don't have roses to put on the cemetery graves.
No.
But it's considered something, almost angelic.
Really?
So I try to tell people that if you've got an interest in this and you really want to delve into it, use caution and use common sense. And remember, be careful what you ask for because you just might get it.
Robert Hunnicutt, thank you so much for coming on the show again, my friend. And please take care of yourself. And I wish you and yours just the very best, because people like you, Robert Hunnicutt, who think, who respect, and who want to do the right thing when it comes to the paranormal are few and far between.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. And as always, I love talking with you.
Take care of yourself, Bob. I look forward to the next time we meet here in the X Zone, and I promise you, my friend, it won't take as long a time.
All right, buddy. You have a good one.
Be good, Bobby.
All
X Zone Nation, Bob Hunnicutt has been our guest this hour, www.georgiaghostsociety.com. Now, when we come back from the news at the top of the hour, on the other side at about 6.5 minutes past, more of the X Zone, because this is truly a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Now, once again, if you'd like to contact Robert Hunnicutt or any other member of the Georgia Ghost Society, their website is www.georgiaghostsociety.com. That's www.georgiaghostsociety.com. And I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.